Imagine you are an ancient pagan living in an emerging society built around a mighty river. The river is your society's key for survival. From the river, you receive the basic necessity of hydration, as well as the ability to grow crops and maintain personal hygiene to ward off illnesses. It is very important that this river, the power which sustains your society, continues to work in your favor. So what do you do to ensure that happens? Anyone? You bribe it. You're getting at it. Well, let me ask you, what's your instinct to ensure what happens?
Well, to take care of
Take care of the river. In the ancient mindset, you are taking care of the river by worshiping it. We don't really think about it that way. We live in a post-pagan, we live in a post-Christian society. So it's kind of we're starting to live in a neo-pagan society, and but we build flood walls, yeah.
something material.
We do something. We build something.
The river and its boundaries, so it doesn't flood our home.
We do things to manage powers in the world. We don't ritually do things anymore, again, because we live in a post-pagan, post-Christian world. How do you get a whole group of people to take care of that river?
Well, if it's your one lifeline, you should have like a common goal.
You have a common goal, but you also have to have a common respect. You have to have a common reverence. You have to all share in the benefits, sure, but everyone has to have it imbued into, this is, again, this river goes, you're gone. Your society, the world is over. Your whole society needs to be built around the importance and reverence of this river, because it's what you use for everything. So here's what you do. You make an appeal to the God, the power or spirit of the river. You construct a shrine or temple for the river god. You carve out an idol statue, a representative image of the river god, and build an altar for offerings. You make a sacrifice to the river god and hold a festival in its name, involving the whole community. You do this regularly and or annually at the prescribed times in order to maintain the favor of the river. Okay? Does that make sense? And this plays itself out very practically. If you have everyone participating in the worship of the river will be respected and maintained. Right? The point here is that temples and idols, these images and these shrines of reverence, they localize the deity, they localize that power so that that power can be appealed to through ritual. The idea is we're going to really congeal all of that power and our attention in regard to that power in this locality so that the whole community can pay homage, can pay tribute to the essence of the thing, right? The essence of the river. And the idols are really important in regard to that, right? If I construct a personified image of the river, I have something to appeal to. I have something to relate to now. You guys following me there? Process of this is very interesting because, so this is Michael Heiser. This is his book. I encourage you to read it. He says, what ancient idol worshippers believed was that the objects they made were inhabited by their gods. Again, it's an antenna for that power, right? This is why they performed ceremonies to open the mouth of the statue. The mouth and nostrils had to be ritually opened for the spirit of the deity to move in and occupy, a notion inspired by the idea that one needs to breathe to be able to live. The idol first had to be animated with a very real spiritual presence of the deity. Once that was done, the entity was localized for worship and for bribing. Once you enter into that relationship with the deity, with the power, you give it a home, you give it a body so that it can be worshipped, and then it will grant you favor. Okay? Does that make sense? Grant you favor for what you need. Anyone in need of rain for your crops, offer a sacrifice to the storm god Baal and appease his wife Asherah, who is a fertility god, to receive fertility in both your crops and in your loins. Okay? Sorry, that's crass. But you get the idea, right? What is our most basic need? Food and reproductive ability. Baal or Baal and Asherah, his wife, sometimes his mother, depending on the myth, but sometimes both. And you get some really wacky practices in the pagan sort of rites and rituals and cults and their cultic worship, including, but not limited to, child sacrifice, right? Which is going to be horribly spoken bad about in the Bible, right? Like just like utterly rejected in the Bible is something like child sacrifice. And wow, those pagans, they're crazy. They sacrifice their own children, things like that. You know what I mean? So, but this is important. And what I'm getting at is what God you worship determines your priorities and actions in your daily life, right? who has power over your decisions and your goals, how you treat others around you, what and how you need to sacrifice in order to gain favor. Because if you wish to succeed in the relevant sphere of influence belonging to the god, then you need to gain their favor through the worship uniquely prescribed to them. I know that this is hard to grasp because we're so far removed from the idea of gods and the pagans and things like that. But the best example again that I can give is something like the algorithm of social media. It's like you want to be a social media influencer, you have to learn how to appeal to the algorithm. And you might make sacrifices in order to do that. You might sacrifice your integrity, you might sacrifice your relationships, and people have done this. People do horrible things and ruin their reputation in sort of a botched sacrifice made to the god of the social media, the algorithm. You guys following me how this sort of plays itself out even in our modern world, okay? So the philosophical root of paganism is the worship of the divided, separate, and competing aspects of the world. The separate, divided, and competing aspects of the world. So the world, philosophically, is divided into different entities and powers. And this includes national powers or tribal powers. So we'll get into that. But the base of paganism is going to be something called, that again, a modern term. It's not like ancient people called it this, but animism, right? So the worship of localized spirits imbued within different aspects of the world. The spirit of the tree grove, the spirit of the fox. Then there's such a thing as totemism. Again, modern term, refers to the worship of spirits which represent localized groups, such as specific families or tribes, right? So if I have a tribal god and I go attack Nathaniel's tribe, and I defeat his tribe, my god has won the battle. I have a stronger god, and my god is now, you're absorbed into the worship of my god. Does that make sense? Because there's a spirit that has animated my culture, my tribe, to go and attack. And now that I have won, or maybe I have lost, the succeeding god is now the principal power. Okay? So the spirits of nature and of various tribal cultures scale up as societies grow in size and influence. Can you guess which gods these idols personify? What is this the god of? War? Who said that? No. Athena is, yeah, and she looks like a woman, but no, not love. Think about what I said. The spirits of nature and tribal culture scale up as societies grow in influence. Okay, let's switch to this one. Anyone want to guess what this is the god of? Who said that? Yes.
Oh, so Athena would be like
Athens. There you go. The city gods, okay? Gods of the city. The god of the city of Athens, right? The god of the city of Rome, or the Roman Empire, right? And think about this. Is Roma, in the pagan mindset, located in Rome, or does her, okay, she might be located in Rome, but does her influence extend beyond Rome? Is like, once you go beyond the four walls of Rome, theoretically, you're outside of the influence of Roma? Can we maybe have a hierarchy of authorities?
Is it kind of like totemism? Like if they want a war,
Yeah, there you go. Then Roma can maybe set up shop over here. If I conquer a kingdom and a land in the name of Roma, Roma has now expanded. So the gods and their images represent the pinnacle of the hierarchy of authority which rests over and inhabits a group. You sort of understand what that means? The idea here is that my god is that which holds me together, holds us together. I'm trying to hit as close to home as possible so that you guys understand. Tell me what are these, and what purpose do they serve in our culture?
Well, symbolism. The bull, I think that's like the bull of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then New York,
Well, let me just ask you, given the conversation we just had, what are these? Logos. What's the difference between a logo and an idol?
a logo is just a
Mhm.
They're both representations, representing a higher personality, a higher power. So the Statue of Liberty is an image representing what? Freedom, liberty, right? Yeah, the stock market bull represents what? Prosperity, wealth, called Mount Rushmore. What does that represent? Authority, leadership, patriotism, ancestor worship. What happens in a sports game? And what happens when you win?
One gets placed higher.
One gets placed higher. One receives the benefits and awards, and one receives the reverence. Think about this. The Bears versus the Eagles. You see what I'm saying? And what that represents. It's a simulated acting out of that thing that I was just talking about wars between tribes, spirits that inhabit those tribes, hierarchies, city gods, trying to get you to understand sort of how these things, they still sort of manifest these operations, these practices, right? In the simulated fashions, obviously, we're not ritually sacrificing to this polar bear for the sake of the game, right? But sometimes people do things with their, or they wear their jerseys, or they, you see what I'm saying? So they focus all their attention so that things can happen in their favor, right? We're about to turn like 180 in our conversation about this, because what the Bible is getting at is, again, wholly revolutionary to what I have been presenting to you, and wholly different. Along with typical paganism, follows an inherently amoral worldview. Good and bad are both intrinsic to the natural order of the world, just as the gods are, right? Everything derives from the primordial waters, including the domain of good and bad, right and wrong. So this gets at the fallibility of those gods. While even a god like Zeus is considered to be a chief god over the Greek pantheon of gods, Zeus is famous for his cruelty, malice, infidelity, and deception. The idea of power as amoral and indifferent to the ideas of right and wrong is inherent in paganism. The gods do as they please, and no one can hold their misconduct to account. And again, they're indifferent to humanity, mostly, and most of all, right? They don't really care. The world is cruel, unjust, out for itself. These powers are out for themselves, and we have to figure out how to appease them, okay? Yeah, we're at their mercy. So when we talk about the Bible, again, the Bible is going to repudiate paganism. That's one of the main themes of the Bible, is the difference between what the prophets of Israel are talking about and how Israel keeps getting pulled into the worship of these lower gods, these lesser beings than who they are claiming is the God of Israel. And they're claiming this is not just the God of Israel. This is the God of Israel, but our God is the God of all things. They pull out all of these different arguments and all of these different sort of like throwdowns of paganism. But the number one that I'll just point to Paul is Paul in Romans describing what I'm getting at. Okay? So he says, claiming to be wise, they became fools. They exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling a mortal human being, or birds, or four-footed animals, or reptiles. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the creator. Paul here is talking about the foolishness of worshiping created things as though they can grant you some favor or salvation in your life for you and your society to be able to thrive. The argument is ultimately these lower powers that you're trying to appease, they will fail you, right? They will fail you. The river is going to dry up sooner or later, no matter what you do, I think is the main point.